You'd have to think the two boys fighting in the main event this weekend, Lamas and Mendez, are checking out the press conferences going on at the moment with McGregor and Aldo and dreaming of the big money fight. Whether they get it or not, we'll have to see about that. But there's a decent card this weekend, good few top quality fighters on there. I'm going to start off in the predictions with Gray Maynard versus Alexander Yakovlev. Yakovlev, typical Russian grappler type fighter. 2 recent losses in the UFC. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC, both decision defeats. The first against Maia, the second against Musoki. He's fighting Gray Maynard. Gray Maynard, as we know, has got knocked out in his last 3 fights. You'd have to think the guys on his last legs are close to it. He has to win this fight. But I don't think Yakovlev is going to be able to handle Maynard's level of grappling. I think Maynard's gonna keep it on feet for the first minute or two. He's gonna start looking for the takedowns. He's gonna dominate, and he's gonna get a decision victory on this. I don't think Yakovlev has the power to knock out Maynard. Well, maybe he does, but he's not the type of fighter that goes for a lot of knockouts. Looking at his record, I mean, he has only 1 knockout win 4 years ago out of 21 wins. So we know what this guy's going to do. He's going to grapple, but I think Maynard's going to have too much for him. That's going to be a decision victory for the bully who put himself slowly back on the map in the lightweight division. Okay, Dustin Poirier is returning. His first fight since that difficult one he had versus Conor McGregor. And this is going to be a true test as he's moving up a division to the lightweight division. He's fighting Carlos Diogo Ferreira. And Carlos came with a big reputation to the UFC, and he immediately submitted Colton Smith. Then he knocked out Ramsey Nijem, but he got a little bit found out in his last fight against Beneil Dariush, and he lost unanimous decision. Now, I think Poirier is going to have a little bit too much for Ferreira, and I think on the feet, Poirier is a little bit better. Ferreira's a bit slow. He tends to gas a little bit. Poirier is good enough on the ground to avoid the submission game, I think, of Ferreira, and I'm not sure Ferreira can take him down. Unless there's something new he's going to bring to the table, I feel like Dustin is going to win this fight. He may well go for a knockout, and he may well get it. And that's what I'll be putting my money on. Dustin Poirier KO. If you look at Poirier's fights before Conor, he knocked out Corsani, knocked out Brandao. His striking is pretty decent. He landed a shot or 2 on Conor, which was not really registered, but I think he's gonna come out pretty storming in this fight. He's gonna win by a KO. Right then, Clay Guida, the Carpenter, Guida is back. He's fighting Robbie Peralta. Robbie Peralta, not the most impressive guy in the roster, and maybe Clay's getting thrown a bone here too. I mean, Peralta, he's a few wins in the UFC. Not really against anyone of any note. I mean, he lost a decision to Corsani, who in my eyes was a very weak fighter. He lost his last fight in a first round rear naked to Thiago Tavares. And Guida has had a bit of a tough time of it. He came back at one point and he fought Takanori Gomi. And I remember that fight. He was bouncing around like a jack in the box. And Gomi didn't know what to do. And then he kind of changed that up a little bit. He lost to Henderson, he lost to Maynard, he lost to Mendez, he lost to Bermudez. And I think he needs to get a little bit of that wildness back where people really just don't know what he's going to do. That unpredictable Clay Guida. And if he can do that, I think he's going to have no problem getting a decision on this guy, Peralta. I mean, Peralta, he's lost a few decisions. He's lost a couple of submissions. And I just don't think, I think he's a good guy for the early prelims. He might put on a couple of decent fights, but I think Guida's going to be a step up for him. Too long in the tooth. And I feel points win will be almost a certainty for Clay unless he can lock in a submission some way when he's dominating on the ground. Okay. Juliana Pena is back after this horrible, horrible knee injury she had. And remember, she won the Ultimate Fighter against the odds. She wasn't liked, kind of bullied in the place. But the girl can fight, and she improved in leaps and bounds. She's got a huge heart. She's quite strong. And I think, you know, of all the girls left that haven't fought Ronda, she's about the best of them. You know, could argue that Holly Holm is pretty good, but she didn't perform too well in her last fight. So I think that Juliana is going to be a contender soon. I mean, she probably has nothing on Ronda, but she's fighting Milana Dudieva, who she's had one fight in the UFC, against Elizabeth Fields, split decision. She wasn't very impressive. She didn't have that fire that Pena has. I mean, Dudieva, she looked decent enough, but I think Pena's going to go through her, and I think she's going to finish her in some way. Mostly, my opinion is swaying towards a ground and pound referee stoppage, something like that. But I think it's going to happen. Dujaev is a good submission fighter. She's got a lot of chokes in her record, but I don't think she's going to get the fight to the position where she can lock in these submission moves. So Pena's going to win it. She's going to win it in style. That's going to be a nice fight. Okay, co-main event. This one I like a lot. Jorge Masvidal. So Jorge used to fight in the streets, fighting Kimbo Slice's mate Ray. Big dudes. Backyard brawls. Masvidal is experienced. He's old school, but he's skills in pretty much every area. He's very good on the feet. Technical fighter. He's good on the ground. He's got submissions. He's got gas, you know. He has it all, and you know, he was a challenger in Strikeforce. And he didn't really get the respect he deserves in terms of matchups when he got to the UFC. Like he fought Justin Wilcox, Tim Means, Michael Chiesa, beat them all. Ironically, beat Chiesa with a choke, his own special move. Then he lost to Rustam Kabalov, a crazy Ruski that threw his last fight. And since then, he's gone on to beat Pat Healy, Dan Cruikshank, and James Krause. Now, I think Ally Quinta, the man he's fighting, is also an excellent fighter who's been improving a lot in the last year alone, really. But he's a bit of a wild man. And Jorge can handle the wild man. Ally Quinta, I had him to knock out Ross Pearson in his last fight. And he did that. He did it pretty well. Oh, I mean, Lozon his last fight did that. He knocked out Pearson in the fight before. And he knocked out Rodrigo Nam before that. But he lost by submission to Mitch Clark. He's lost by submission to Chiesa before. I'm thinking it's going to be harder to submit Ally Quinta with I'd say Sarah has been working on a submission defense after those. But I think Jorge is just one step ahead of Al in pretty much every department. And the only thing that could maybe win it for Al is his unorthodox style of striking. He could catch Jorge in some way, but I don't think so. Jorge hasn't been knocked out in about 7 years. Ray couldn't knock him out. Ally Quinta's not going to knock him out. And I see Jorge winning this fight. I think he's going to take Al down at some point. I think he's going to go for the back. He's going to look for submission. Whether he can get it or not, I don't know. He's winning the fight. It's either on points or it's on by submission. That's how it's going. I wouldn't mind seeing Al keep going up the ranks. Good fighter, but he's going to get a little bit found out with Jorge. Jorge's another level, and Jorge, in my eyes, is top 5. And he's going to prove it this weekend. Alright then. The main event, Lamas is fighting Mendez. These two boys are sidelined in the whole Aldo McGregor featherweight division. Lamas beat Dennis Bermudez, subbed him in the first round with a guillotine. Hakran Diaz, unanimous decision. Those two came after his unanimous decision loss to Aldo, where he didn't really turn up to the fight, to be honest. But make no mistake, Lamas is good. Wins over Swanson, Hioki, Koch. And he's worthy of a top 5 in that division. I don't think he's quite good enough to beat Mendez. Mendez will have a little bit too much power for Lamas. And I have a feeling that he's going to knock him out. And I'm not sure if he can do it in the first round. Lamas is going to dance a bit. He's going to try and land leg strikes. He's going to try and get in and out, pepper him with jabs, hooks. Mendez is going to land one big blow at some point. He's going to follow it in. He's going to pepper him with strikes on the ground. The referee's going to stop the fight. I'm pretty sure it's a 5-rounder. Is it a 5-rounder? I think it's a 5-rounder. It's a main event, so it's probably a 5-rounder. And Mendez is going to have a little bit too much for Lamas in that. And Ricardo, the bully Lamas, he's not going to be bullying anyone this weekend. It's not going to happen. Mini Mendez is going to be the bully with the Napoleon complex. Then he's going to call out McGregor. No one's going to listen because they're not really interested. But this fight should be a good one with Lamas. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to winning some cash and getting a nice big fat bankroll by the time Vegas and McGregor and Aldo comes around. I'll be putting a big wager for an Irish KO. Anyway, good luck with the bets this weekend. Adios.